come from somewhere, and it tells us in the Quran that Allah created it. What about life? What about life? If there was just a floating rock and blew up, where do you get life out of that? And in fact, Allah tells us in the Quran that He brought all life out of water 1,400 years ago. So if you say, oh gosh, you guys are right alongside of the scientists, I'm going to tell you, no, the scientists are right alongside of the Quran. Because you have to go with whatever came first. Isn't that true? I mean, excuse me, but I think if you use a little bit of logic here, you'll figure out that a text which came 1,400 years ago is not trying to match itself up to some kind of science that's going to come later. Make sense? How are we doing? Okay? Not going too fast. Okay. Let's go and look a little bit more at the subject of evolution. On the other hand, Islam does not teach that human beings came from monkeys or apes. We don't accept that. Why? Because it tells us in the Quran that's not how it happened. In fact, if anything, the monkeys and apes would be a lesser form of human. How many of you think that human beings can evolve from apes? Do you think so? You really think they can? Well, according to science, they can't. How many of you know that they've recently, in the last 10 years, released a whole new proposition that it's genetically impossible, there are too many numbers in between, that we didn't actually come from apes or monkeys? How many of you read that? Yeah, okay, we got something like to read. Good. By the way, there is an animal that is very close to the human being, that whenever we need parts, we can go get raw parts off of this guy and keep going. Anybody know who I'm talking about? Pigs! Pigs! Hey, you guys saw my deal before. That's okay. Okay. It happened back in about 1977 when the Duke, how many of you know who's the Duke? Man, you guys are too young. That's the problem here. The Duke, John Wayne. He went under the knife because he had to have his heart repaired. They put a new valve in, and they took the valve not from a capuchin monkey. No. And they didn't take this valve from a macaque. That's another kind of monkey in Southeast Asia. Pay attention. They didn't take it from a mandrill. That's a baboon in Africa. Okay? They didn't take it from an orangutan. That's my brother-in-law. This is down there. He's big, by the way. It's on Boba. When you heard about him, it's in that tape we're talking about. Okay. They took it out of a pig. They took it out of a pig because the structure, the cells, and the way that the heart works inside the pig is much closer than the human being. And we find this reference also in the Quran when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that He actually turned some of the early people who disobeyed Him, He turned them into monkeys and pigs. How many of you read that and know that's true? Yup. Well, how about that? So some of the things we're finding now in science that we're discovering over here in the West have been well known to people for centuries and centuries and centuries in the East. Whoops. By the way, just while I'm on the subject of discovery, you know this great country we live in today, America. I can say that because I can get away with that. You know who I learned how to say that from? One of my heroes from Texas. You know, President Lyndon Baines Johnson. He said, America. I'm American. Are you American? Don't make fun of him. Anyhow, America was discovered by who? Come on, guys. Play with me here. The camera won't pick this up. Come on. By who? We'll get one more chance. America was discovered by who? Columbus. What year was that? Oh, you're being set up, by the way. What year was that? 1492. 1492. What country did it come from? Spain. Andalusia. Anybody know that? 1492. What's important about that? What month did he leave? I know he came here on October 9th, okay? What month did he leave? July. What happened in January of that year? 6 months before. Anybody? Come on. Any history students? World history. January 1492, the last Khalifa of Islam in Spain went down the drain. Hey, wait a minute. And the rain fell on the plain, mainly in Spain. Don't work on my English, but I'm at it. Okay. See, 1492, the same year, 6 months later, all of a sudden, we're taking off and we're going around the world. And Christopher Columbus is saying the world is round. How does he know? Has he been there? Was he on the moon? Did he notice it was round? It looks like a big blueberry? No. Somebody told him. Who told him? The people that had already been there. And by the way, did he make it to America? Or did he, you know why? Because in October the rates are a lot cheaper down in the Bahamas. His travel agency gave him a good deal and away he went. He made several trips over to the States, right? Wrong. Bahamas only. Who brought him? Prisoners. How many of you know it was prisoners brought him over in those ships? Those ships were 3 old ships. Spanish galleons, yes or no? And they were old. Why? Because one of them was sinking. That's why. How do you get old ships when your country is only 6 months old? It means that these ships belong to the former government, which was what? Islam. How many of you know that Islam ruled Spain for 750 years? Okay. So the same year they didn't rule it anymore, all of a sudden, America became discovered. Oops. Now, how many of you know that people in the world knew 500 years before Columbus already knew the earth was round? Raise your hand. Yeah. That's right. Because the first globe on record happens to be in Al-Azhar University in Cairo, Egypt, 1,000 years ago. Oops. So we need to do a little bit of history before we start talking. We need to get a little bit of information, because it's real easy to pick up what it says in the newspaper or history book and say, that's what I believe. And in fact, some of these things are outright lies. Some of them are misdirection. And some of them are just plain confusion. I'm not trying to tell you I know anything that anybody else in the room doesn't know. As a matter of fact, all the things that I've said here so far, you can go to the dictionary or your Encarta online and find it. This is clear. This is not secret information. I don't work with the CIA, although I do live real close to the Pentagon, by the way, which became very exciting on September 11th for me, from a whole different perspective. When you got airplanes attacking where you live, it's not very funny. But that's why I'm here tonight, is to talk about Islam and terrorism. We mentioned that Islam is an action, it's something you do. And it's talking about your relationship with your God, your Lord. According to this word, Islam, it would mean that one who would surrender, submit, obey in sincerity and in peace to their Lord, they would then become an Islamer. Because I'm using English language. So I use the suffix er, walker, talker, Islamer. In the Arabic language, you use a prefix called mu, the letter mim in front of it, and it produces the one who performs the verb. For instance, a traveler in Arabic language is called a musafir, because the word safar is Arabic for traveler. And our word safari comes from the Arabic word safar. And sometimes when I travel, I do suffer. Well, that's not the case here. You guys take good care of me. Looking forward to spending a couple of days. First days of Ramadan are coming up, by the way. I'm really excited about that. Let's see what kind of food you guys get around here. You do not cook, right? Hello. Nod your head. That's very good. You do have McDonald's in town too, right? So anyway, we're good to go. Good shape. So, a person who performs this action, surrender, submission, obedience, and sincerity and peace to his God, is a mu.